Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Kate Fossen, and I am the founder at Brand Pollinators, where we support purpose-driven emerging brands to help them scale. And we do that by facilitating collaborations so that founders can learn from each other and their brands can help kind of share resources and amplify their impact. So this is one of our monthly community calls. This month we have our guest Liz. So Liz is joining us. Her company is called Ecodio. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's Ecodio.
Ecodio.
Yeah.
See, I've always seen it written, and I just haven't really
like Vimeo. It stands for Eco Code and Video. So
Eco Code.
It's okay. Everybody has their own pronunciation. It's okay.
Okay, well, we got it right this time. So, but Liz has a ton of experience in video, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. She is an award-winning filmmaker and video producer with over 20 years of experience. She's worked in Hollywood as a cinematographer, a camera woman, and a documentarian, and also worked behind a camera on syndicated broadcast shows in politics and in advertising. And then she's been doing Ecodio for 8 or 9 years now. And that is a video firm that's focused on connecting audiences to climate solutions. And Ecodio is a B Corp, 1% for the Planet member, and American Sustainable Business Network member. So thank you so much for joining us today, Liz.
Thanks for having me. It's a super honor to be here. I really like this group. Cool.
Oh, well, thank you
for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I know that video is on people's minds because, of course, it's one of the main forms of content that people are using to kind of share their message. And I know that you've done some really amazing work with video. So hopefully you can share some of your insights with us and provide a little bit of background or maybe some supporting evidence for why video is important and how we can use it with our brands.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So one of my first questions is, what are the top reasons for using video over static images, or, I mean, really any other form of communication? Like, why would people pick video?
Sure. And we'll make some time for questions and chatting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Pretty small group, so I'll try to not talk too much. So just interrupt me if you have questions. Definitely you want to use video over static images. I mean, static images have their place. It's important sometimes to show a photograph with some graphics on it, or an image from your brand. But video is the fastest way to reach millions of people under 30 seconds, like period, or 60 seconds. Brain science says that we absorb more when there's less. And these days we are inundated with the digital landscape of the nonstop content and media. So, if we can have something that takes a short amount of time and is a powerful message, the more likely our brains will retain it. Video is just more engaging. It draws people in. It's 3D, so you're activating more senses than you would activate with a graphic or a photo. So there's just that brain science also. You're activating more of a 3D experience and a feel and sound. It brings your brand to life. It brings your brand alive. You're living in your brand, so it's very alive for you, but that doesn't mean it's alive for your audience or for your consumers. So 83% of people or something, these statistics are approximate, so don't hold me to the wall about it, but 83% of people prefer watching videos versus, in order to access educational or informational content versus text or audio, although ChatGPT is a close competitor right now, but video is still much more compelling, because you can kind of trust instruction and educational information because you're watching it and you're feeling it and you're experiencing it. 91% of businesses use video now as a marketing tool. It is my full-on philosophy that most people think video content for their business is a nice to have. I would argue that it is a must have, and that it is now becoming one of the fastest languages we speak. There are 5 billion videos watched a day worldwide, billion with a B. So, you know, it's primary language. Those of you that have kids, I know Kate has kids. These kids are growing up watching hundreds of thousands of videos by the time they're 10 years, millions of videos by the time they're 10 years old or 15 years old, or they're growing up very differently than I grew up, which was like Channel 13 or a couple of shows when I was not grounded or allowed to watch something. So, you know, that's just think about the difference in brain structure of a child growing and how much information they're taking in through all this content versus the way that we grew up. Or I might be older than some of you, but yeah.
I think that's such a great point too, because like, I mean, younger generations are being raised on video. I mean, I'm very conscientious about not having my kids on screens all the time, but it's much more, like you said, than the older generations. And so, you know, as consumers come into the marketplace and, you know, technology, those innate technology, what do you call people that like grew up with technology?
Digital natives.
Digital natives is what I was going for. You know, they're the ones that are driving those purchases now too. So
100%.
Yeah, and that's such a great point.
Yeah, and I mean, from a business perspective, you know, I think 90% or something like that say that videos are helpful in a decision process. And there's just there's also a you know, like the Madison Avenue philosophy of repetitive branding. So if you have micro bits on social or video, more likely that people are going to recognize that brand. And then when they're in the store at that shelf, if you have a CPG brand or a brand, they're going to there's going to be a memory. There's going to be a you know, more of a association with that brand versus, you know, anyway, videos also, you know, putting them in an email and a mass email or emails, they have a 300% increase in click rates. You know, so I think, you know, here's, let me just share my screen really fast. Here's, I might share my screen on and off, guys, because I have a few slides, but, so this is just some statistics here, like there's 1 billion YouTube videos watched a day, 1 billion TikTok videos watched a day. So you think about these audiences, you think about your markets. It's a powerful thing. So
yeah, and so like why? So on TikTok, I feel like a lot of that is raw videos. I'm sure like Facebook probably has more polished, but I mean, you work in really high quality, you know, really well curated, produced video. I mean, why would someone need that over just kind of more like a raw, like iPhone video?
Yeah. So, okay. So we also do not high-end stuff. So I come from super high-end stuff. I worked in Hollywood. I worked on big syndicated shows. I worked on commercials, but I'm also a scrappy Gen X filmmaker. And so and you know, it's kind of like vinyl. It's kind of like, you know, I'm going to listen to some 90s rock now and then, you know, like I just like some lo-fi stuff. And I think that's part of filmmaking too. I think that not everything has to cost $1 billion and be super polished and glossy. And also, authenticity is now becoming everything for brands. I mean, it always was, but particularly in this day and age of AI, it's really important to have trust and to have authenticness with your brand. So if that means that some of that's filmed on an iPhone because you happen to be in the field with the farmer that's growing this, you know, regenerative ag crop, like great, like that footage is real. So it doesn't necessarily mean you had the money to send a camera crew down there or wherever it is, you know. So there's ways to work. It's really about okay, let me try to organize myself here about this. So let's talk about like a brand in our social impact spaces, right? So if you had a low quality website or a low quality logo, would you put that in front of investors and distributors? Probably not. But if it had some low quality stuff in it because it was a little like behind the scenes, that's okay.
Right. It's kind of like
You know,
that.
it's about how you put it together. It needs to have a strong message, story, intention. You're putting your best face forward. So you know, as far as the smartphone and the iPhone, sure, there's all kinds of apps, you know, for $3.99, you can have unlimited content all month, right? Sure, you can DIY it, but I will tell you that professional grade work doesn't happen at $3.99 a month or $99 a year. And what you will run into eventually is you will get what you pay for. I think those apps can be helpful for some stuff, but I do think that those apps also have limitations, and you will run into a presenting your brand wall at a certain point using those apps. Mostly what you're getting is a lot of, you know, nothing authentic. So if you have, and also time is a commodity. If you have time to go ahead and lay out your messaging, and you really know what you're doing with that, or you already have your messaging really well laid out with your team, and then you can go produce all the assets on your phone and edit it, and the sound bites and the quality, and have the transitions really smooth, and be sure that it's effective. Okay, use the $3.99 apps, go for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with DIYing some content, especially if you don't have the budget. But I do think that it's worth it to invest in working with a professional producer, at least for strategy and screenwriting, and helping to make, they might think about it differently than you do, because they've been doing this for years and years and years. And there's a lot of ways that you think it might work, but it doesn't, it won't necessarily rise above the noise. And, you know, just because it's a nice shot, or just because you're showing something in your brand, doesn't mean that that's good storytelling. So yeah, and also there's libraries and templates and like things that make it a lot easier in these apps, but that doesn't have the authentic feel that your brand really deserves in this AI age. To stand above other brands and rise above, and to really show that you're a social impact brand, and like what's special secret sauce about you, plus special about your brand, you're going to have to bring in that authentic element. And you probably will not find that in the templates of these $3.99 a year kind of apps. I think they have their place, you know, so they can supplement where no camera can go, or it's just not appropriate to, you know, or maybe it's a farmer's market and it's really fun to grab on the street farmer's market responses to a product, a new flavor, or, you know, that makes sense. But then that should be intercut with maybe proper narration and proper storytelling, so that you're not just throwing up this like disposable media. Your brand is something you craft very carefully, and you should be putting it out there very carefully.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point about how, you know, if you want to DIY and you have this in place and this in place and this in place, I think working with somebody who's going to create video for you helps kind of create that accountability, and helps bring some structure, and, you know, helps kind of narrate or figure out the right format for narrating the story, and the angles you're going to tell the story. So yeah, it's not just about like the quality of the video, it's like all those other pieces that go into producing it, and having like a strategy behind it.
Yeah. Now, I think that it's maybe worth downloading a couple of good of the camera apps. I would definitely not say don't do that, but like, here's an example of like a company that, can you guys see the screen? Okay, so they like sent their team out to plant trees in Detroit, and it's like a community thing, and they, you know what I mean? And this just made sense to shoot on the iPhone, like on their phones, right? But then it was intercut into the whole story, sort of like trajectory. I'm trying to find another, like, here's another example, and it's just a community thing. So you don't really want to have like a big old camera crew and, you know, disruptive, and it just takes away a lot of the authenticity. So this just makes a lot of sense. But like, here's another example, like, this is a coffee company out of the Midwest that has this amazing, they give 5% to youth for all their coffee in this country, like youth programs all over. And are really, really fantastic. So like this kind of footage is like great, like just grab, it's from some of the basketball coach, like from his iPhone. Like some of that footage I can never get because I'm not at the game and we couldn't afford to be hired to go to the game. So some of that stuff about this impact program is really great for their impact storytelling and can be used later with proper graphics, proper storytelling, proper scripting on their social media feeds, like to show their impact. So that's kind of an example.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, you talked about using it on social media, and I think that's probably one of the biggest areas where people are watching video. But I mean, what are some other ways that brands can use video? I mean, you did mention the investor pitch, or like, what are some other ways brands can use video, or like, where can they share it or tell their story with it?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. So, video can be used for investor facing, for case studies, for if you're trying to raise seed round A, maybe even crowdfunding, wherever you're at seed round B, stakeholders, trying to attract a board, trying to attract distributors, trying to attract where you're going to, what stores are going to hold your product, or if you're an NGO, explaining campaigns. If you're a regen ag brewery, what's different about your beer? If you're creating jobs, there's all kinds of storytelling that is just like your marketing strategies. Like what fits your what do you need for your marketing strategy? It's just an amplifier of what messaging you need to get out, whether it's external facing or internal facing. So video can also be used internally for, if you have a factory or you have different parties growing or packaging your product, or different parts of your company, they may not be as engaged as you are or your core team is. So keeping engagement in sync, videos can be used for let's say you're a B Corp and not everybody understands what that is. It's a way to keep the team engaged internally as well. It can be also, you can create educational series of for showcasing like all kinds of stuff. Case studies, we've worked with solar companies where, applying solar and a battery system to a residential home is totally different than applying it to a business where they have a fleet of trucks and then they want to plug the trucks into this solar rig. That's a totally different case study, So sometimes we'll create case studies for like a solar company or a company that has different applications of their product. And that's a very important, useful tool for your sales and your business growth. Because if you're trying to just reach hotels, you might want something that showcases how your product has been used in hotels, versus if I'm a residential, it's just a different kind of animal. So, so the more content you produce for biz dev and sales, sometimes it helps with creating that relationship, because people can get it in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. They can see, oh, though that hotel did it, we should think about that. And also the last thing I'll say on this is to keep it simple. Less is more. So you don't have to tell everything about your brand and like make this huge epic documentary. Like it just depends on what your goal is. Like, are you talking to a distributor? Who are you talking to? Is it distributors? Okay, so what are the important things? Let's just do that. Maybe some top key things about your brand, but it doesn't have to be a whole wedding.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to break the bank. That's another thing. So
yeah, no, that's such a good point. And it reminds me, when you're talking about the internal communication, I was at Dr. Bronner's soap factory a couple of weeks back, and
lucky you.
I know, it was so cool. But in the break room, they had so they serve like a vegan lunch for everybody at the office every day. So we got to partake in that, which was amazing. And in the break room, they had this big screen on the wall, and it was just like replaying videos from them at like Burning Man and these different events that they've been to. And you know, it was just kind of fun stuff, but like, and I don't know, maybe that was just for our benefit that they were playing it, but it was just cool that they had that sort of going in the background, because you could see everybody just having a great time. Like all the employees were there, and, you know, they were engaged, and, you know, it just really like sort of helped influence and kind of just perpetuate that culture that they have going, where it's like, oh yeah, and if you're not like feeling the vibe at this very moment, like you just look up at the video and you're like, oh, this is where I am, you know. It's kind of cool.
It's really cool. I know Patagonia very well. Like that's a brand that I know very, very well, right? I went to a B Corp event in New York City, and they showed that, you know, Patagonia is a company that has historically invested a lot in filmmaking, very expensive filmmaking, gorgeous stuff, top tier filmmaking, by Hollywood standards or beyond. And but they showed a couple of film that I had no idea about. Like, you know, even though I know that brand really well, like their brands have layers, and you can break that out however you want. Whatever you want to show, what cards you want to show. Like you want to show you know, well, maybe you want to show your workers, because that's what's gonna, people want to support that. Maybe you want to show how it's grown without pesticides. Maybe you want to show XYZ. Depends who you, again, it depends on your audience. And I definitely recommend working with a video strategist if you don't know where to start. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's really about your goals with that product, with that video product.
Well, and you know, one thing I was thinking about too is like just the amount of video that's created. I mean, if you create like a bigger kind of more epic video, then you could still repurpose a lot of that content. Like, is that, I mean, does that make sense to have sort of a kind of one bigger video to start with, and then you can break it out? Or what do you recommend for that?
Absolutely. So that's a cornerstone of what we do. That's a foundation of the way we think and work, especially being like social impact and environmental eco video firm over here. Ecodio is a company focused on climate solutions. So the more that we repurpose, retool, recycle, you know, refurbish, regenerate, the better. And first of all, just the core of filmmaking, regardless of all that, is that when you have a final edit on anything, most likely you're pulling the best selects from a huge batch of footage or a batch of footage. And honestly, 30% of that will end up in the cut, the final cut. 70% then is left on the editorial floor, proverbial. And that means that you have all these assets that can be retooled, repurposed, re-edited, cleaned up, or used in micro bits. We call them snack videos. So we create packages. So we'll make the main sort of cornerstone piece, which is like, sometimes people want, for example, most commonly, people want an overview piece about their organization. There's some history, there's some future, and there's some present. And then it's also like, what's special about us, you know, stuff like that. And from that batch of footage, there'll be all these assets that can be their social media content for the next year. Because there's so much footage, we can just pick one bite out or one moment and put some cool graphics on it. Or we could take some of that and create little micro pieces like, here, I'll show you an example. This is a company, the same one I was talking about, that this coffee company that decided to plant trees. And some owls came back, like all these birds, but like these videos were stories of like, oh, sorry, this is Ecosia. Right. I'm sorry, wrong company. They planted trees. And so the storytelling is about that. This one was about the challenges that they encountered. Like the soil was bad. They had the wrong species of tree. They had to get the right tree that's native to that area. And then other stories about the wildlife that came back. So you can break up that footage thematically and repurpose and retool it myriad of ways.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, last note there, Kate, is that a lot of organizations we've worked with, particularly in the nonprofit sector back in the day, they would be like, see this shelf behind me, I've got all these old hard drives. I don't really know what to do with them. They're full of dust, like, but they're full of great stuff. And so that's, if you have stuff from the past, don't write that off. That stuff can be reused and made beautiful and spanky new and put all kinds of cool messaging on it. So if you already have stuff, those are assets that are very valuable. And can be even better than some new ones you get. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's good. I had a friend that was just like, always be recording. Like everything you do, always be recording, because you never know when you're gonna have something that you can use later.
yep. I mean, there was for an example of that is, I don't know if any of you watched that documentary on Netflix about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, just to divert for a second. You know, they were just slammed by the, you know, the synopsis slammed by the, you know, like the royals are by the mainstream media and tabloids, and you know, what a bunch of shit people they are, right? Meanwhile, she comes from, you know, media and film, and they started just self-recording their reality. That film, and they had a friend who was a producer that guided them, and they, over the course of a couple of years, gathered all this amazing iPhone footage of their real life and what it's really like to go through being what they are. And that documentary is amazing. So there's a lot of films like this that, so to your point, Kate, record always when it's because these moments in life are fleeting, and moments with our brands can be really beautiful. And we're not going to necessarily always have a camera there.
Yeah.
But with the right producer, and if you're capturing it, you can bring it to life.
Now, I mean, I imagine Harry and Meghan have kind of a bigger budget than most of us. So like, what could we expect from, you know, how much it would cost, or like the time commitment really involved in getting some, like, maybe like one of those good overarching, like high quality videos about your company?
Yeah, sure. And just to add, I don't even think they had a producer at the time. They just started recording, because in defense, okay. But anyway, so cost is a thing. Sorry, I digress. Cost is a thing. You know, and this is why people go to the $3.99 apps. So I just need a 30-second thing. You know, can you do it for $200? I get asked that all the time, and it's like, no, I can't. But the timing of the video, like the length of it, is nothing to do with the price. It's what's involved. How much footage do you have? Do you have any assets at all? Do we need to go film? Can we work with stock footage? Can we just work with motion graphics and some of your photos and like bring stuff to life? Can we record some Zoom interviews? You know, it doesn't have to necessarily cost $1 million trillion. But the time people think, oh, well, it's just a 15-second thing I need. That is not at all correlational to the cost of the video. It is what is involved in the labor, in the scripting, in the assets. So what we try to do is create, you know, we'll work with you in a budget. So, and the other thing that we do is we work with amortizing cost, and I'm glad to talk offline more about that. So we work with a lot of brands, especially because we're a B Corp, 1% for planet, all about social impact, all about building the world that's not here yet. Our friends are all these baby brands trying to survive and build. And that's my family. Everybody I love is in this space. And so what we try to do is work with you, but that cost has to be parsed out over time. And that's the best way to work, because then it doesn't break your bank, but you could still have high-end video products that make sense for your brand without like going for broke, or the artists and the team, the other B Corp on this side of the wall, getting ripped off and not having any money. So we have to pay fair wages to our talented team too. So that way, what we do is we try to break out costs very fairly over as long period of a time. It's like the most low interest loan possible, you know, if you think of it that way, so that it's super doable for you, and will help you build a strategy. So like maybe when you're approaching a big trade show, you want to have a proper video piece that's going to be up on that screen, where you're giving a talk. And so we can work up to some deadlines in your strategies. In the meantime, in the slower times, we can give you some social bits to throw out on LinkedIn and Insta and TikTok and whatever. based on the whatever assets we already have on the drives, and work with you on that messaging. So that's one way to amortize cost, and we do that a lot lately. We also build packages, video packages. So, maybe you want to build a case study over the course of some time, so we can do that. Things like that. We work very flexibly, but cost it's not something you can just quote. People drive me crazy. They ask me all the time, well, just tell me, how much would it cost? It's like, it's not like that. I need to dive deep and find out what you need. What assets do you have? What's involved here?
Yeah. And on the flip side of the coin, it's like similar in marketing. People are always like, what's the ROI? It's like, well, that's gonna be a little tricky, but I imagine with video, it's the same way where, you're looking at, okay, it's generating brand awareness, it's educating people, but do you have like some examples of ROI from these investments?
I do. I'm trying to find a few. So here's an example while I talk, so you at least have something to look at besides me. This was a company called Clean Choice Energy. Sorry about this thing. Can you guys see that? Okay, so we did a bunch of big pieces for them to explain why Clean Choice Energy is good. They use it's a Eastern Seaboard renewable company. They kind of link small clean energy producers to the grid. And then they provide Clean Choice Energy on your bill. So you could pick them as your provider for power. So breaking out the stories like, oh, no, this is a different one. I'm sorry. I keep pulling up the wrong slide. This is a B Corp resort we did. So I'm so sorry, but these are all examples of ROI, return on investment. So they, for Clean Choice Energy, what they were looking for were to grow their sales, to get more people aware of them, so that on their power bill, when they get their next Con Ed or PG&E bill, they're going to click Clean Choice Energy, and they're just switching their power over to this renewable company. So we would create these like ongoing social videos so the return on investment is, well, did they have a couple 100,000 signups? And it did increase their signups. I don't know, the number keeps changing, so I don't know the exact ROI. But that's what a marketing director would look like, or look for, or a COO or a CEO would look for. Legacy Vacation Resorts, which is a B Corp resort, we just finished a couple of animations for them that breaks down why they're sustainable, why you can have a green vacation, and like how that can feel really good, and have just as good a vacation. And so like breaking that down, we don't know the ROI yet because we just produced those. But we're in close touch with the marketing director, and they're keeping tabs on it. Also at the beginning of the process, working together on what your strategy is. What's your strategy? Like, are you, and following your metrics every 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and seeing that growth. Don't expect the ROI to happen in 2 months. You have to, and then what's your plan? Are you going to let the videos just go dead on the feeds, or are you going to repost them? Are you going to, do paid advertising with them? So these are things that are very brand specific. It just depends where you're at and what you need. I've had a lot of founders in my space say to me that we've done work for, we're doing more work for them, and we'll be in a call and they'll be like, well, that last piece, we got a couple $100,000 in investment. And I'm like, you did? Why didn't you tell me that? So I don't even know the ROI sometimes, because, but the founders will know it. And it's the kind of thing where the salespeople will know it because they don't have to sell so hard. Or suddenly distributor picks you up, because there'll be these shifts in connection to your brand through the business world. And that's your ROI, those shifts. To be honest with you, it's a very difficult question, Kate, because it's more of an intangible, indirect impact. Sometimes it can be direct, but
I fully understand that. And, I had to ask the question because that's the question that people are always, wanting to know. Like, if I spend the money on this, what do I get back out of it? And people ask me that kind of stuff on marketing, and the answer is the same. It's like, you may not know, it depends.
Yeah.
It takes time. Like there's a lot of things that they're just hard to measure, but over time, they add up. And like you said, there's, people kind of have to see something a lot of times before it really sort of imprints in their brain, and they recognize it then when they see it the next time. So yeah, I fully understand. I know it's not, I wasn't really expecting a percentage answer on that.
Yeah.
I know how
And
that.
also, like, just putting it out there randomly in the ether doesn't mean you're going to get that ROI. You have to be targeted where you're putting it out and the way that you're putting it out. Maybe it's hashtags, or maybe it's you're only sending it, in what groups are you posting, that sort of thing. Just being
Yeah.
very strategic about the way that you're putting the content out there too.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, using the right content in the right place. Cause like you talked about, pulling out pieces or those little snack videos, like if you're, if you've got something that's kind of more geared towards internal employees and you're sharing it with, potential customers, like it might sort of fall flat because they're sort of like, well, I'm not planning on working for this company. Why would I care about this aspect? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it depends on what you're showing to who, for sure. So one of my last questions I had for you, which we can open it up if anybody else has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. But one of the things I wanted to ask too is about timing of when to invest in like a good quality video or when to hire somebody, because a lot of the brands in our community are at this emerging stage where they have a really low budget at this point, and working on being as scrappy as possible. But what's like a good time to say, okay, I really should invest in some good quality video?
Yeah. I mean, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, it's a good time to invest in video. So you built this beautiful brand and it's just not getting out there and reaching the people you really need to reach. So, that's a good time to invest. Also, know that, you know, you need a tool that gets across the feel and the vibe and the specialness of your brand. That's a differentiator about your product to the right people or to the right consumers. So it's something you can send in connecting emails and put on feeds and repetitively put out, show at trade shows. So it can have the actual piece that you produce can be used in multiple ways, sent to investors. It can be reused in many, many ways. So if you need a bunch of those things, it's a good time to invest. And I think showcasing, if you need engagement and you need more sales, like in terms of it depends on your product, what you're doing. If you need sales or you need more audience or more engagement, that's a good time. And I think snack videos are a great way to think about it. And that's a great way to keep your feeds alive, engaged, and interact with your audience. And then maybe more strategic videos for the business side.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend, we often do like video packages when people make that investment, because that way it's over time, it can be amortized, and it can meet a lot of needs at once.
Mm-hmm.
But like you'll have a whole bunch of assets that will help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's really good advice for the brands in this community, especially because it's hard to know when it's worth spending the money on when you have such a tight budget. But like you said, if there's a lot of different places where you could be using it, then that might be, you're killing many birds with one stone at that point. I kind of hate that analogy, but
yeah, I hate it too. I'm trying to find another one because we don't want to kill them.
Yeah, it's quite right, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so anyway, any other questions that you guys wanted to ask Liz? Is there something specific about a video that you're thinking about, or a brand that that you would like to use video to sort of leverage that message or tell a story? Liz is available to answer questions now, or she also is, I'm assuming, oh yeah, here's your
Yeah,
link
just put my info in the chat. Mhm.
available to reach out to if you have something that you would rather not discuss on the call. That's fine too. But in the meantime, Liz, do you have any other advice for brands that are consumer facing? They have a product, but they're building really conscientiously with the mission. Like what's something that they ask you often, or what's something that you would recommend for how they could leverage video? Oh, you're on mute.
I think what's interesting is to tell your story. It's as old as anything else. So, companies are not just like a job anymore. I mean, for some people they are, but they're not really a job. It's like it's kind of a lifestyle, and it's also like it's political, and it's we care about our colleagues and our companies and our brands and the way we make our products. We care. And so telling your story authentically is going to be the thing that is going to bring people to you. It is very easy to just put up a bunch of marketing and advertising that's just kind of what you think you should do. But the thing you should do is like, who do you want to reach? Like, just be real. So that's what I would say. It's as old as anything. So I have this slide up because it's as old as anything. We used to gather around the fire pit, right, to tell stories, and those stories helped us survive but also kept us bonded and connected. So to keeping your brand connected is to tell your story. Now we tell those stories instead of around a fire. We tell them this is the proverbial fire is our screens. So think of your screen as the fire pit. Like, we are communicating in this way that is very it's how we connect. It really is. So how are you going to connect with a visual, or with something that is 3D and brings us into a story a little bit? And I think that'll draw people to you more.
Yeah. And it's about in those sitting around the fire, telling the story, it's about passing down information, like you said. And that's, word of mouth, we know, is still kind of the main driver in marketing. So being able to share the story in a way that is so inspiring that other people want to share it too. I think that's where it can make a really big impact.
Yeah. And when something's great, like people just share it everywhere. So, I mean, I know that Oatly is a controversial brand for a lot of reasons, that a lot of people are not happy with Oatly because they bought up all those stuff like that. But Oatly's branding was off the hook, right? Like I was guilty at first, before I knew a lot of things, of sharing their branding, because I was like, wow. So sometimes storytelling can have its own running train that you do not control. It's a great little moment. Somebody will share it. And that's what you want. You want to have passive sharers, passive ambassadors of your brand. So the better that your storytelling is, the more that will happen.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, just because you mentioned it, it makes me think too about that whole greenwashing concept, where brands can, bigger brands especially that have the budget, can create these, kind of spin up these stories, or create really high quality videos that, the people planting the trees and may not be necessarily as authentic as what the smaller brands are doing. So there's a lot of competition out there for sure. And sometimes it's hard to know the difference between something that's really authentic.
Yeah. Yep. Does anybody have any questions or want to talk about ideas or projects or anything? Or yeah.
I do. Good. Hi. First of all,
Anna.
thank you. Thank you for this. I work with Alejandro in Loom. And so one of our in-house brands, which is Mima, I don't know if you've heard from Mima. So can I share my screen really quickly?
Oh yeah. I need to allow here.
So since Mima is an in-house brand, we always try to have like a beautiful marketing, and Alejandro is very careful with everything we post, everything we do. And specifically with Amazon. Yeah. Okay. So specifically with Amazon, which is like our main channel or marketplace for Mima, what we usually do is we have product focused videos. And I was wondering, Liz, if you have any other tips of like how can we maybe do a different type of video or maybe innovate, because this is the type of videos that we do right now. Like there was a photo shoot a couple of years ago and we have this. We know that we should do something different about storytelling and like story behind me. But other than that, we've been dealing with a lot of ideas and different what we can do to innovate with videos for Amazon specifically. Because sometimes we do long videos, people don't watch them. Like I was just wondering if you have any other tips or maybe ideas for brands. This is a customer product review video.
Yeah. No, they look nice. I mean, they look, production value is, for what it is. Like, I think that what's like a competition? So, it requires a deep dive to kind of look at a little more of your more larger strategy, but like most people are they just using paper towels in the kitchen and just throwing away paper towels. Like, so, do you want to bring in a little social impact there? Like you have some Mimas in the kitchen, like, and what's great about it, and maybe, they're made very, beautifully, you like some of the great storytelling around your job creator, you're helping people that are making these, beautiful kitchen.
Well, and I know, Liz, you probably aren't familiar with Mima, but they actually use like the scraps from denim manufacturing to create the product. So you're using these upcycled waste product that is now, I mean, they're beautiful. Like I have some of these cloths myself. And so
I'm gonna buy some. I'm gonna buy some.
So
I actually need a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, I have an old ratty. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave the link here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, please put it here. Yeah.
Thanks.
But I think that would be a great piece to include too. And I know that, not every single consumer is obsessed with, the sourcing of all the inputs of the product. But for people that do care about that stuff, it seems like it would be great to have, a place where they can, recognize that as something that you're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And
really wonderful.
I think that we do like communicate it on titles, on images, on bullet points, copy, but we're not doing it on videos. So that's something that I'm gonna just take back and talk about it with Alex.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Is if it's working elsewhere, then let's put it into video. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if you're getting a good, do you feel good that it's working elsewhere?
Well, the thing is that with some campaigns that we're doing on Amazon, the videos that work the best and have the highest return, it's very product focused. Like this is the quality. Yes, we say it's upcycled, but there's not a lot of storytelling. Yeah.
And then like in the keywords or in other, phrasing and stuff, is that element of it being like an eco-friendly product or an upcycled product? Is that something that resonates with people?
Not really for Amazon, not really, because we've tried a lot of strategies for upcycle, eco-friendly, and most people don't buy it because it's an upcycled product. That's what's interesting. Really? They buy it because it's a beautiful design. Maybe they like the patterns and colors. Maybe they like to combine it, but since eco-friendly, like not all of our clients are very interested in that, which is awful,
Well, and I think Liz mentioned this earlier, but you could also go with that angle of like who, you know, who the faces are behind the product too, not necessarily like the actual elements of the material, but, you know, the people that are making them, you know, that's another way to kind of show behind the scenes that maybe would resonate more with people than the aspect of the material that's being used.
Right. Yeah.
Also, language in scripting is important. So upcycled is often a word that is tough for a lot of people. It sounds like I want a new one. I don't want to buy the upcycled, you know, it's like buying a vacuum cleaner. I'm not going to buy a used vacuum cleaner, you know, like, do I mean? Like, so, you know, upcycled is an important word and I know what it means, but I mean, maybe there's some other way to use language in a video that could be like, you know, these dish towels in your kitchen are helping the planet. You're not only cleaning up your kitchen, but you're creating jobs. You're supporting a community. You're you know, so diving a little deeper and then having that narration and maybe some footage from like Kate said, behind the scenes and stuff, mixed with these awesome, cool, like this hip tatted like dude with the apron on. Like, I love that photography. Like, that's great. So there's no need, if maybe next time you guys do a photo shoot like this, film it. Or I don't know if you did film it, but and then
maybe there's some behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think just more layers, like intercut it with behind the scenes and some more deeper messaging. And I'm glad to always help you with strategy too, but that doesn't mean, I know you probably have in-house. Oh, you guys are, I didn't know about this brand for some reason. I'm embarrassed. I'm excited. You have really, really nice branding here. Really beautiful.
Thank you. Alejandro is amazing. He's the master behind Mima, like, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, and Loom is a really cool collective where they actually work with a lot of different brands that are amazing. I actually saw Nole in one of the stores in my neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah, it was like
nice. Nole is also doing great on Amazon, and it's also one of our other impact brands. So it's shampoo and conditioner bars, and they're made of natural ingredients. And Alida, the owner, she has a great story behind it. Yeah, most of our brands are impact brands, but we try to do a lot of storytelling and try to just sell them on Amazon because there's really cool stories behind all these brands.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And in the world of like Pier 1 or Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever, you're cutting edge leaders. So it's important to remember that and put yourself out there that way. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you are doing that, I can tell with but in video too. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole, it looks like you guys have great stuff going on.
Thank you. No, but thanks for all the tips. I think we have to see it as like in a different angle and try different things.
Yeah. And also maybe those are those things, but you have an impact video you make that is good for growing the company with further investment or further community engagement or for other reasons. So that could be very helpful. You know, like your impact report, bring it to life.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. I hope it's
Awesome.
helpful. I don't know. Hope so.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I know we're running short on time here. So I just wanted to wrap it up, but thank you so much for joining us, Liz. And I hope that this was valuable for everyone. I feel like I learned a lot, and I think, I think we're hopefully inspired to move forward with some better quality storytelling and learned a lot of great things from you today.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. And I'd like to know the rest of you and come to another Brand Pollinator. Maybe we're not talking.
No, it was awesome. I know we had a lot to cover, so it was great to hear all that. And the recording's available later for anybody who missed it or had to leave early or had to come late. If you have any other further questions, Liz has her LinkedIn here and her email address. Feel free to reach out If you have any questions for me or Brand Pollinators, I'm Kate at brandpollinators.com, and you can visit our website, brandpollinators.com. We're actually working on a really cool video collaboration right now. Liz is not part of this one because we got started with someone else before this call, but maybe in the future we'll do another. So the collaboration we're working on now is brands coming together to like split the cost of creating a video around a specific impact element. And so we can definitely do other topics in the future and look at other ways that brands can collaborate on video and other things. So if you're interested, check out brandpollinators.com. It's called the Collab Garden, where we formulate some collaborations. And yeah, thank you so much, Liz, for being here. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Bye.